Presumably now you've got much more freedom in the choice of parts than you would have had in the early 60s.
I believe you should earn the right. That should be the barometer of the type of power you should have over the material you're doing. By that I mean, if you have a good record as a performer or director, whatever capacity you function in, then if you have kind of come through, you know, with some decent work, then you should have a right and have some power over the material you're dealing with. So what happens is usually that people figure, well, what the hell, he hasn't done so bad in some of the things he's done, so, you know, we'll listen to him.
So you'd work closely with the director on most of your films?
I think you should. I think you absolutely should. I'd like to be in on the beginning of a film, really. Unfortunately, that's very hard to do, and very seldom does that opportunity come up, you know. I mean, it's now that I know some directors, we're talking about things we could kind of work on together. I think that's, each film now, I think, will be done like a unit. I mean, the age of Hollywood studios or big studios is over, and it's going to be independent productions, which I think is marvelous. And you'll make a unit for each film. You won't get your big money, which really never fascinated me that much, as long as I can feed my daughter and that with some sense of self-respect. And you'll operate together, and you'll work together, and you'll try to create and develop together. In America, we have almost had big business destroy the art form of film, almost, but not quite, because now independent money's coming in, and productions needn't be so lavishly and stupidly disorganized. And then, of course, there's the power game. You see, this is one of the things that has destroyed almost American films, is suddenly conglomerates come in because they like women and decide to make movies because they might get lucky with the women, you see. And they hire the best people, and then they come down to tell the best people what they're doing wrong, of
You mean
which they have
the best writers
the best
and directors?
movies, the writers and the actors, and
yeah.
then they come down suddenly and say, you know, from the Wall Street business office, I don't think that scene's very good. And you say, I beg your pardon. You said, well, I don't think that scene's being played right. And you say, well, where the hell did you go to school? I mean, well, you know, you want me to go up in your office and take care of your accounts? I don't think your accounts are going very well either.
Mr. Steiger?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask what you think of actors like Marlon Brando who make a stand on race relations or other such issues. Do you think an actor should become publicly involved in this sort of thing?
I think you have to if you're a human being today. I don't think you have a choice. You have to go outside. If I can't go outside of my house without fearing I'm going to get beaten up, I've got to go outside. I've got to go outside and do something and say something. Number one, to answer your question, yes, you are a person first, a human being first, and an actor second. Therefore, you are a citizen first and an actor second. Yes, you must go outside. But the danger is those who cannot create artistically often substitute. And that's what I begin to wonder when I watch some of these people who are always in the forefront. You see, if they were in the fifth row of the march, I wouldn't mind. No, you know, you have to watch that danger because, I mean, I'm trying to split a hair here, but there is ego in all of us, and nobody enjoys anything more than saying, look, I'm out in front for good. I'm marching for the goodness of the world, right? And he's enjoying the thrill of what he thinks the right idea, not necessarily the idea of sacrificing anything. So I think you should fight. We should fight for each other because we damn well need to, it seems, what's going on now.
In the Heat of the Night, for example.
In the Heat of the Night was a happy film. Sidney Poitier is a friend of mine for about 14 years. An accident, a fluke took place in that film. Our love of each other, our respect for each other as human beings, and our friendship kind of fell into that film. And I think that's what kind of makes that film work. I don't mean to be disrespectful to the director and all that, but I mean, we had known in our lives each other a long time. I was well aware of the prejudices that was in myself. And Sidney and I had, in fact, there was one scene in the film, the scene in the house, where they're becoming friends, and then somebody says a remark that reminds them, unfortunately, of their own prejudices, and there are these. When I said to him as the sheriff, don't you pity me, black boy, because that was the end of the scene. Sidney and I had had a scene like that, not to that emotional extent, but about 8 years before in his apartment. We had been talking about racial prejudice and problems, and said, when, you know, we're the highest form of animal, and this prejudice exists in all of us, and don't you at times look at me and say, you white son of a bitch, we should drop dead when you're tired and angry and you've been hurt and insulted. And don't I look at you when I am stupidly animal and my intellect departs and leaves me, and I stand there, and because I've been hurt, say, oh, you black bastard, you're no good. That film's not going to solve any social problems. It's not I don't think any film will. I think they can indicate, like films like Z and that, and make you aware of certain things. But then again, who does it make aware? Only those people who are really sensitive enough and worried about being aware, you know. It was a happy and a good film.
Let's have some more questions. Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like you to amplify on, you said something about you thought In the Heat of the Night didn't do particularly much good, rather as a film as propaganda.
A lot of people in Hollywood thought this was their big social film. You know, it's a lot of crap. It isn't. It's a very nice film and a good film. And yes, I think it's good to see a black man and a white man working together, and it's good to remind people of the problem, but it's not going to take the tension out of New York City, and it's not going to stop riots in Chicago and all that. If you ask me to go to see a film lecture, then I say, fine, that's what you invited me to. I don't think a film should lecture unless it tells you outside in front, this is a lecture, and therefore you can say, okay, that's what I came to see. But I think there's much more work to be done. I do think it's an incredibly powerful force, especially when you remember that some of these things eventually, even though they are butchered on American television, will get onto American television, and 92 million people can see it in one night, and maybe some smattering of some kind of intelligence will get through in spite of the Madison Avenue idiot mind that may have something to do with it, cutting it and censoring it while they sell cancer and other delightful things, you know. So I think we're just beginning. I'm not here to speak about English films. I think, and let's forget English in America. I mean, the filmmakers have a chance now to really make their statements, but they must be made in theatrical forms. That's what I'm saying. It must be made in gripping stories and that. It mustn't, as I say, lecture. Does that answer you?
Mr. Steiger, many successful actors have become directors, some of them quite good. I've wondered, have you ever thought of doing this?
Yes, I want to very, very, very much. I'm going to be 45 in April. I am unfortunately brainwashed a little bit by the American disease of passing time. I mean, we live in an age now, if you're over 11 years old, you're washed up on the King's Road. You know what I mean? No, but that's what I feel like. The point I'm trying to say is that I think I got 15 more good years to go.
50?
15. And as a director, I would be able to work when I was older, and I want to direct anyway because I have a lot to do with some of the films I've done. So I'd very much like to direct, yes.
Well, I wondered if perhaps you'd turn your talent to writing, because you've got some pretty interesting
Well,
views.
I always used to like to write, yeah. I'd love to be able to develop in that field. I'd never give up acting because, you know, I've been lucky enough that I'm living pretty good that way, and I'm not going to give it up. But I would very much, yes. I mean, I think the one thing I had the most frustrating... I had two publishers come and say to me, would you write a book? Well, you know your ego. You go mad. You say, of course. You know, of course. The world is waiting for my bloody book, yes. And they said, no, I said, of course, I say right away, I'm not writing anything on acting because I don't want any of that crap. I'm not going to write one of these terrible books about my life in Newark, New Jersey, because a few black people are having more trouble in Newark, New Jersey than I ever had. So that's dull. There are many more tragic lives. And then they said, well, write about anything. We don't care. You know, 3 days later, I had to call up and say, you know, I don't have anything to say. And I hope someday I do, but I realized, you know, it's such a temptation to say yes, oh. But I said, what the hell have I got to say? I'm trying to say, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to say it in this kind of form. But that upset me, because I had the dream, you know, Thomas Wolfe rides again, you know. I'm afraid he's doing all right by himself. Yes, sir. Didn't you want to say something
Yeah,
before?
I was going to say, when you're preparing for your playing Napoleon, the film Waterloo, that you read 10 biographies. Don't you feel there's some danger of over-intellectualizing when you're preparing for a part?
Well, I didn't read 10 biographies first. That's a press release.
That's a report I read.
No, I know, yeah. I read a lot of books. I don't know how many. I read so many books about the Battle of Waterloo, I don't think it took place. I mean, it just, you know, there were so many conflicting reports and who won who and who went where that after a while I stopped, and the smartest thing I did about Napoleon was, I'm not talking about the performance, that's for you to judge, but I suddenly remembered, I called the American Medical Association, I said, do you have an autopsy? Do you have a translation of his autopsy? And they did in Chicago, which they sent to me, and ironically enough, they cut him open on a billiard table, you know, which I can't, you know, it's just incredible, the emperor of the world on the billiard table. And he was dying of cirrhosis of the liver, partially cirrhosis, cancer of the stomach, incredible hemorrhoids, advanced gonorrhea. He had a germ he picked up in Egypt, I forget, a parasitical kind of germ that gets in the lungs. So the man, the last 6 years of his life, I played him at 45. was dying, and that gave me the basis of my conception, which was simply a man whose mind was so powerful he refused to let his body die, and the problems that would involve as an actor to try to create. I mean, how he gets up, how he sits, the pain sometimes not to pass out when somebody's talking to you, little things like that. Because greatness you can't play. I mean, when you walk in the room and everybody bows, they know that's the emperor that takes care of the greatness, you know. I try to play a man who refuses to die. His ambition is to succeed and to win this last great battle, to make the greatest exit in the world, because he knows he's going to die within 6 years. It was tragic at the end. I mean, it's just tragic that the man just refused to recognize death and refused to recognize disease in that. I'm on his side, really. I don't know about philosophically, but as the actor, I have to be on his side in order to try to investigate his life. Sir?
If you had a completely free hand about the next kind of film you made, what role would you like to play? What is the role you would most like to play in the cinema?
Life of Ernest Hemingway. That's what I'd like to do in cinema. Then I'd like to do Beethoven, Edgar Allan Poe. But I'd like to do the life of Hemingway if I could have my way.
Why?
Because I adore the man, because I like his spirit, because I love his writing, because it would be a challenge trying to be, you know, for a few seconds or so, Ernest Hemingway.
Is that why you did Al Capone?
No, Al Capone. I remember you. Yes, sir. No, I did Al Capone. That was the first kind of big part I got to play, and I did that because I wanted people to get to know me so I could act some more. Yes?
I'm training to be an actor. One tends to get in a sort of vacuum. I wonder if you can give me some honest advice on approaching my career.
What honest advice would you like? It is a dirty, treacherous, rotten, mixed up, glorious, magnificent, perhaps, and if you're gifted to be one of those poetic people who'll be remembered, my advice to you is to do it. I ask you one question. Do you need to be an actor, or if you want to be an actor? If you want to be an actor, get the hell out of acting. If you need to act, you will do it in spite of yourself.